You're listening to Tapestry, a podcast by a music lover for a music lover. I'm your host, Kelly. Join me as I learn about the common thread that weaves throughout our lives, music. All right, guys, so before I get into my normal introduction, I just wanted to kind of announce a couple things. The recent good news is that some changes will be being made to Tapestry in the future, and I'm getting this sorted out, but those changes will be coming due to the fact that I now am part of the PodHub network. And the PodHub network is a local Pittsburgh-based network run by some guys who, one of them actually is on his own show called Around the 412. It's actually a Pittsburgh Pirates-based podcast, so if you're into baseball and you like the Bucks, go check them out. But yeah, the PodHub network is a local network that is kind of a congregation of a variety of different podcasts, and I found out about them actually through my friends over at the Working Stiffs podcast. I was on their episode 36, I think. They are local guys as well. But thank you very much to the PodHub network for picking me up and walking me through everything. And so the reason I said there might be some changes coming is because Tapestry in the future at some point will have some small ad spots. I'm not quite sure when I'm going to fit them in, if I'm going to like break the interview at a natural pause and insert an ad, or if it'll just be a really short one at the beginning or the end. I'm not quite sure yet, but just stay tuned for that. It's not very invasive. You know, Working Stiffs has it on theirs. It's just like right at the beginning, and it's relevant targeted advertising. But PodHub is great because they kind of work for us podcasters, so their intent is to help us get some ad revenue back and pay for our hosting and those sorts of things. So I'm very happy to be a part of that, and thank you to everybody who has listened and has ever shared an episode or told your friends about it or anything. It means so much to me, just because I'm just one chick doing this on her own. So any little bit helps, and I'm very thankful for anybody who's ever listened and stuck it out for a whole episode. So, 2, I wanted to kind of take a step back because I realized I've never announced it, or I've never really said anything or included it in my hashtags, and I really should start doing it, but it's probably because my involvement has been pretty casual. But from almost the very start, I think maybe episode 3 or 4, I also kind of got tapped to join the Build the Scene network. There are some other local Pittsburgh podcasts on there as well. PA Rock Show is one of them, and Bill from PA Rock Show early on was really just super kind to me and kind of reached out, and they're like, hey, do you want us to throw you on the website? I said, sure. So funny enough, the episode after this one actually is a direct response from that. The people I'm going to interview on the next episode literally found me from Build the Scene. So I just want to give a shout out to them as well. Now that my long-winded introduction is out of the way, I'm going to start the actual goddamn episode, and I've just been very busy, and this one has been sitting on my computer since June. So because the timing was so long, just there's some other announcements in here that were a secret before, and now I've waited so long that they aren't. So stick around for this one. It's a long interview, but it's a really fun one, and I felt it was a good time to announce the PodHub involvement because one of my 2 guests on this interview is actually a Pittsburgh guy as well. So without further ado, half of the band A Notion of Silence, and those 2 people are Jesse Brock, who's the singer and also a guitarist, as well as Austin Klinger, another guitarist for the band. One is in Nashville and one is in Pittsburgh. So I had a very interesting conversation with the both of them, one sitting on my couch and one on Skype. And this conversation just goes places, trust me. We talk about everything from astrophysics to Mass Effect to how setting boundaries can foster your creativity and why it's a really good idea to start a band based on just supporting your friends and the music that they make. Here's the track Graviton Signal off their latest album, Dynamo.
Come
this is kind of surreal because I have two people in two different places in two different states in two different time zones, but yet you are both in the same band called A Notion of Silence.
Welcome to scheduling for anything we ever do.
Just because we're going to have three voices in this, why don't you guys both introduce yourselves and just tell me a little bit about each of yourselves?
Okay, I'll start. My name is Austin. I am the guitarist and principal songwriter for A Notion of Silence. I live here in Pittsburgh, so I'm the one that is local here. And I went to college with the other guys in Notion of Silence who are in Nashville. And the other guy on the phone is...
I am Jesse Brock. I sing and play guitar in A Notion of Silence, as well as a number of other projects. But yeah, that is what I do. I live in Nashville, Tennessee, and try to survive doing music.
Yeah, it looks like you're in your studio right now. I see your little foam things behind you, or is that just really cool looking art?
So these are diffusers back here that my dad and I built.
Cool.
There's a really cool website for it, and then we have some clouds and other stuff over here. It
looks very fancy and sound dampening, so I'm sure your audio is going to sound fantastic. But
it works okay.
I have like a ceiling fan going above me, so hopefully it doesn't come through too badly. But okay, so both of you guys have an audio background. You both went to Belmont together, and am I correct in saying that you both went to school for audio production?
Yeah, audio engineering.
Audio engineering. Okay.
Yep,
that was the degree at Belmont, just the general audio engineering degree. It was basically a tech degree.
Okay. So that's why Austin, to my right, he's the one that basically fixed everything to get this episode working. So I was like, oh, at least for this episode, I'm in good hands. But yeah, so you guys have an audio background, and I mean, I just have so many questions about how a band like this comes together. But first, why don't you both tell me a little bit about kind of how you both started down the path of music and what eventually led you both to Belmont all those years later.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know how far back you want to go with like
in the crib. I don't care. It's fine.
My dad plays folk guitar. He's a big old hippie. So I always had that music going on when I was a kid. One of his favorite stories, though, is he had a tape deck of cassette tapes of all his favorite classic rock bands, and I was a little toddler and listening to my, Barney's songs or whatever, and I was like, Dad, can I listen to one of your tapes? He's like, okay, sure. And so he pulls out a Clapton tape, and the first thing that comes on is Layla, which has that immense rock guitar riff right at the beginning, and to hear him tell it, I was hooked on rock and roll from there.
From like the time you were like 3?
Yep. So, from there, played trombone in high school or in middle school, picked up guitar, started learning rock and roll, decided that metal was like rock and roll, but more. Had a high school band called, at first it was called Carpe Noctem, and then it was called Firebrand when we realized that we sounded like a black metal band title, but actually played like 80s metal.
Firebrand is awesome. Those demos still resonate with me so much.
Do you still soundtrack with nightlife?
Whenever I can, yeah.
Well, I don't want to cut you off, Jesse, but I did think it was funny when I asked for your influences. I know Austin was the one who kind of answered the question, but at the end it said, Lines in the Sky, yes, really, which is your other main band. And so I just was like, oh, they really like each other. We're like fanboys of each other's projects. It's so cute.
But seriously, though, because, that and a little bit of metalcore was, like, my guitar world when I came into college. And I was trying to make a metalcore band freshman year of college, and that never went anywhere. But then sophomore year, Jesse and I lived together. Just a mutual friend was like, hey, you both need roommates, and you make music and stuff. We're like, okay.
And then we proceeded to copy each other's style so hard for the next 3 years.
Okay, so you guys are both in the same grade,
yeah,
too. Okay, so yeah, you're in at the similar stage of life, and
yeah, I think Austin's a little older than me, and I was definitely at Belmont longer than he was,
by a significant margin.
Did you do a victory lap, Jesse?
Oh yes.
They had to chase him away with a broom.
Get out!
So mom had me in piano lessons at a very young age, and I hated it.
Yep.
But I kind of felt like I had to do it. I guess it was like a chore. And then we listened to a lot of Sting. I think Austin can vouch. Sting is definitely one of the biggest influences on all of my music across the board. And then I really got into guitar-driven stuff, listening to like The Police and other various classic rock things. And I remember in 4th or 5th grade, I got my first guitar. It was what was that? The Squire Bullet kit with like the shitty amp and the Squire Bullet, and that's what I learned guitar on. And I just kind of did little rock things, just kind of amorphous blobs of notes. And then I kind of got into nu metal, but the big thing for me was Lamb of God. And I remember the first time I heard Morton play anything, I was just like, dude, I want to be able to do that kind of stuff. So for the longest time, that kind of tech death stuff. Well, I guess tech death wasn't a thing, but the death metal thing was a huge influence for a long time. And then, of course, I went through a hardcore scene in college and was into a lot of the early hardcore bands. As I Lay Dying comes to mind as a favorite of the time. But yeah, and then I went to college, and then I don't know. I was really into like Circa Survive and.
Oh right, we talked about that.
Yeah, Anthony Green was a huge influence, and then Coheed and Cambria as well. How did I forget that one? Coheed and Cambria is like the biggest influence.
Austin didn't forget it. Austin had it on the list.
Yeah, well, and I only ever got into them because Jesse was like, "Yo, you're not listening to Coheed?" I'm like, "No, who's that?" And I remember the first time he showed me, I'm like, "Oh yeah, this was that band that had that song on Rock Band that I thought was gonna be awesome," and then the voice came in and I didn't like it. Boy, how things change.
Oh, Claudio.
Boy, how things change.
The first time I heard them, I think I was in 7th grade, and a friend of mine got the Willing Well 2 record, Good Apollo 2 record, excuse me, and we went back to his house and played Halo 2 on Xbox Live for the rest of the evening, and just listened to that record on repeat. And it's just like such a cool memory in my mind, hearing that record, and it's still that is still probably my favorite record of all time, the one with Welcome Home and the Suffering.
Oh, that's
Good Apollo 1.
Yeah, or no, isn't that 4? The one with the
yeah, that's Volume 4, Good Apollo Volume 1.
Oh God, so you guys even know more than me. I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, I think he's talking about the black album with the red IV on the front, which is my favorite Coheed album as well.
Yeah, no, the problem with that is that the next album is Volume 4, Part 2.
What the fuck?
Yeah, exactly.
That's funny you mentioned that, because I was paranoid that I wasn't going to have enough free space on my MacBook, even though I still have like plenty, but I was deleting old videos of things that I knew I was not going to watch anymore, and one of them was from when I went to go see Coheed, I think it was like 2 years ago when they did the Good Apollo tour, and I'm like, watching the video is never going to make me think about the fact that I was weeping. Like, I have to recall that memory in my head, because it was just so emotional seeing that album after like 10 years performed live.
Bowman and I did you see them on that tour, Austin?
The Good Apollo tour?
Yeah,
the one that just happened the other year. Oh, yes.
Yeah, they sounded. That's probably the best I've heard them, and it was for Bowman and I. It was a transcendental, very, very emotional experience, and I actually met Claudio after that, really randomly in a guitar center.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I was on tour with Edge of Reality. It was the first tour I did with them, and I was really mad because I broke my iLock, which is like a licensor USB thing.
Okay.
And I had something I had to turn in, and I was like, oh my God, I'm so pissed. And then the bass player was like, Claudio is in Guitar Center with us. And I was like, no, he's not. And I was like, oh yeah, he totally is. And I almost weeped.
Okay. Yeah, I was starting to talk about Coheed and how every musician that I look up to, they have a musician that they look up to. They have that musician that makes, their music just brings them so much joy, and they are like holy crap, I can't believe I'm meeting you right now. I can't believe I'm doing this. And I don't know. I that really knocks down a lot of the walls for me. Like, just knowing that even your heroes have heroes, I guess.
Yeah, there's some really cool moments in It Might Get Loud. I don't know if you ever saw that documentary with Edge, Jack White. But there's just some of the songs that Jimmy Page starts just playing randomly in there, and you just see this look on Edge and Jack's face. They're like, I can't believe I'm sitting here watching Jimmy Page play this classic rock legend, and they're huge in their own right too.
Yeah, it's really another level of like, how deep does it go, and how much are you willing to like treat the musicians you look up to like these superhuman people. And the more people I interview, the more people I talk to, I just think they're just people. Like, you're worried about what you have to do at work tomorrow and eat for dinner. Like, you just are very supremely talented. That's all. But I don't know. It's a nice way to connect.
Yeah, it was. Sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good.
We just recently had our show where we opened up for Sarah Longfield and Felix Martin, and they're not on the god tier of like meeting Claudio would be for me, but they're still people that I like look up to as musicians as like way above me and like kind of emulate, and they've got the whole social media game and the YouTuber thing together, so definitely people I look up to. And meeting them and chatting in person was very much like, oh yeah, you're cool, totally a good hang.
Or in Sarah's case, because I was in attendance at that show, of course, Sarah had just as many technical difficulties as you did, if not arguably more.
I would say more.
Yeah. Kind of lost an entire drummer, so I felt very bad for her. But
well, and they had to cut their set short because they had to do tracks for their songs to try and fill in for the drummers, and there's only so many they could get ready in time.
Right.
So,
yeah. You guys really valiantly fought through the technical difficulty of that show that night. I got to give you a lot of credit.
Yeah, there was a lot of just bad luck and just freak accidents that happened when we were setting up. Our tracks didn't want to work, and our routing for our tracks didn't want to work either. And then I blew a tube in my amp, and I was super mad. I was like, I worked so hard to practice these songs, to sing and play, and now I'm not going to be able to do that.
At least Jesse is not just the guitarist of A Notion of Silence, but you are also the singer, so you had something to do while you were hopping around on stage. But
you know what's funny? The only other show I've seen at that venue, one of the bands we saw play there, Ether Realm, who's opening for Ailstorm and Necrogoblicon, their bassist was their vocalist, and their bass amp blew, and they had like the exact same. Okay, I guess after 5 minutes, 10 minutes trying to get it to work, it's like, this is what we're doing.
Right, you have to roll with the punches. Did you guys, either of you, ever have like another stress test type of thing like that, where you show up to a show and just like absolutely nothing is going right?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, the Edge of Reality release show was kind of like that because that one was really stressful, and I actually paid a guy to come help me with that, and then it turned out to be even more stressful. We made some goofy mistakes that messed us up, and then those types of shows happen from time to time, and you just need to. I feel like the best way to handle them is to just once your time is finished there, then just be like, get a beer and go to bed.
Right.
That's
right.
Kind of
it's like, okay, it's over. Yeah. We'll I think especially like considering, okay, so you guys together as A Notion of Silence, your particular brand of music it's definitely progressive metal. It's very sci-fi and stuff, but at least Jesse, your additional projects, Edge of Reality. I know you guys just put out a really awesome new album called In Static. You're also involved in Lines in the Sky, and all three of these bands are, kind of what, I don't want to say what we come to expect because it's definitely not ordinary, but the expectation of the listener out there now is, I want my prog metal to have 8,000 extra backing tracks and all these vocal harmonies and effects and stuff, and I I'm not, I'm a musician, but I don't really perform out in a band. And I just always think how I take for granted when a show goes well and you really enjoy it, it's because everything happens to fucking work right.
Yeah.
And that's unbelievable.
Yeah, and I will say one of the benefits, one thing that Notion has going for it, and Lines to a degree as well, is if the tracks do go down, we can still shred it without it. And
Right.
a lot of people rely on their tracks way too much, especially when you start putting guitars and stuff in your tracks. Edge certainly doesn't rely on the tracks. It is much more involved, and it would be a different show without it.
Right.
But I mean, if you can still get up there and just roll with the punches, that just makes you even more flexible and the show even more fun from a a listener standpoint as well.
Yeah, I mean, with the whole thing where Nolly's not playing live with Periphery anymore, but they're not filling in, so they have just tracks. I'm like, okay, I get it. You want to just kind of enshrine Nolly as the bass player emeritus there, but man, sometimes the tracks don't fucking work, man.
Right. And I've seen Periphery twice without Nolly, now that I think about it, and it's not that you don't miss him, but it is very different without him. It's just not the same, man. It's just not the same.
This is true.
So before I forget to ask this seems kind of arrogant of me as a host, but I just want to get it on record. I want to see if I'm close or if I'm totally wrong. I've listened to An Ocean of Silence's main album, Dynamo, like 300 times now, and I just want to ask you both if I'm getting the story correctly.
Oh God, here we go.
So this is my interpretation of the sci-fi storyline of Dynamo by An Ocean of Silence. I had to write it down because I always get confused. So, here we go. You tell me at the end how wrong I am. So, some deity is locked in a chamber beneath the earth, in prison kind of, waiting for centuries to enact his revenge on the person who betrayed him, and is trying to figure out how to break free. But I think it's in, is it in The Watcher that the one lyric says the prison is growing its own keys? So basically, like, to enact this revenge, he somehow gains the power to bring humans to life from nothing, and then decides to leverage them as weapons by breeding them for war. And then the deity summons mankind to free him by releasing the graviton signal, and when he is discovered and it changes life on Earth as we know it, everything that we know about science and religion, once the deity's free, he tries to convince mankind that living as a subservient slave to him with the gift of ultimate strength and power is better than the individual differences and weaknesses of humanity. That is my book report on Dynamo.
That's really pretty spot on.
Yeah.
Yes!
No one has gotten it quite that accurate.
Oh, yes. Okay, sweet.
And that actually makes me feel really good, because it's hard to string a story together and still have it be decent lyrics. And whenever possible, I erred on the side of decent lyrics over coherence. So, yeah, I mean, the only real details in there that aren't really, that you didn't get were that the Watcher, the deity imprisoned in the earth, was imprisoned in the first place for creating life. So that's the first stone.
Okay.
So he's kind of, I liken him to the Q from Star Trek.
Oh, damn it. I'm not a Star Trek watcher.
Okay, well,
I'm going to miss all of your references.
right.
Guaranteed.
Well, so they're not literal deities, but they're so far above us, they might as well be. And
okay.
Think the Forerunners from the Halo 4.
I'm also not going to get that reference, sadly. I was a PlayStation kid, not
Friendship
Xbox.
with Bo damaged.
Yeah. Sorry.
But so their one rule, and I don't really. Well, so the first stone is the trial against him of his race against him, where they basically set forth that their only law is to not bring forth artificial life, which.
Oh, good. Okay, I got that part right. Your lyrics are very good, Austin. I understand them. And then it also helps when you have somebody like Jesse singing them in a nice, clear voice that I can understand. And there's only a couple parts where, you, Austin, where you scream, but you also scream clearly. It's obvious what you're saying, so.
Side note, Austin's scream is fucking brutal.
It is. I remember when I saw you guys for the first time live, and I think it was...
Probably would have been the Watcher.
It was the Watcher whenever he screamed, "My children will be my revenge," and I just about shit my pants. I'm like, oh, what's happening here? Okay, but anyway, continue.
Yeah, so the he creates life perfectly innocently, and but it's their one rule, so they're like, hey, you broke our one rule, you're going to jail forever, basically.
Right.
So him creating life on Earth is, he was trapped in there. He was supposed to have no agency, but the idea of the gravitons is that I'm going to get super deep into
get nerdy
theoretical astrophysics that I don't particularly understand because I'm not a physicist. But the theoretical graviton particle, which is the force particle of gravity, hasn't been proven, but gravity is an extremely weak force compared to electromagnetism, the strong force, the weak force, which are the other fundamental nuclear forces. So the idea is that he's trapped in the Earth and he's supposed to have no influence. He retains a little bit of control over the force of gravity, which reaches out past the Earth, and through that he's able to subtly. And I cut a song which was supposed to be the imprisonment, which tied it to the event that created the moon.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, that song just never came together, so I scrapped it.
That could just be a bonus track or something.
Yeah. So he's been in there for billions of years. But the only thing he can really control is these little strings of gravity. So it's like, okay, to make life, I need some water. Let's tug on a comet for a couple centuries until now there's water.
Oh, and that's why I think it's Contact. That's see the strings. Like,
Yes.
I can understand that I really am nothing other than quantum particles.
Yep, and see, the through line from the little influences, and the getting a little more fantasy in my sci-fi is that as it goes, he kind of has more of a hold on his particular creation. So like he can whisper in people's ears and be the little influence in the back of your head kind of deal.
Mm-hmm. Shadow on the dark.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
So then the only other point that I would add to your synopsis was the ending on humanity, which is basically our main character who is the person in Dynamo who starts off with saying that he feels these quantum forces and understands them, and that's his whole drive is to try and figure out the workings of the universe. So through the revelation of the Watcher, our main character is able to not just sense and see the strings of the Watcher's influence in him, but can see through his own understanding that he has power over them as well, and can influence his individual control and not be bound by the destiny of how he was created, but take advantage of it. And he ascends himself and the rest of humanity not to be weapons for war, but to be their own transcendent beings.
Okay, and then that's why in the last song, Humanity, it's like Earth and Sky, I need to leave you, I don't belong here anymore, and
exactly.
I'm not going to be some deity's bitch, I'm going to go be myself somewhere else.
Yep.
There's a really cool production thing that the guy who mixed our record, Chris Baldani, did on that last Ascend. It kind of fades into this garbled field of, it's some sort of delay, and it just embodies that whole transition metaphorically so well, for me at least.
Yeah.
And when I heard that the first time, I was like, ooh.
Yeah. Dang. Yeah, Chris had a number of moments there when he was giving us our first mixes where I'm like, yes, that was inspired.
Yeah, like that shows that your engineer is like truly trying to get the story. They're not just trying to bring the music to a listenable place. They're trying to actually bring it to life.
Yeah. Shout out to Chris Baldani, by the way. He's an incredible musician in an incredible band of his own called Owls in the Attic, and he's an incredible engineer as well, and we're working with him on the next line stuff right now.
Okay.
Did he do the engineering on Thalassophobia?
He did the drums and the engineering on the drums, the engineering for the vocals, and a little bit of like the synth stuff.
I mean, I friggin' love how that song sounds, man.
it came together nicely. The next one, just a side note, we started writing the next one yesterday, and it's ignorantly heavy.
Oh. So let's switch gears for a second from Notion of Silence to Lines in the Sky. kind of your other primary band, Jesse. That's how I met you. Well, it was kind of through Austin. I mean, I met both of you on the same night, essentially, but I just remember you were really surprised that anybody knew Lines in the Sky, and that I was kind of fangirling a little bit. But I was like, wait, that's the guy from Lines in the Sky. Ah! Like, I didn't know what to do. But I don't remember how.
Mind.
Yeah, I had no idea what was yet to come, and then you're in Edge of Reality as well. But so is your writing process or anything really any different for Lines in the Sky? Because it is a different band. You're with different band members, but your signature vocal style is still there.
So
I would say almost 100% different.
Yeah. So one of the things that works well for Notion, and this answers the question for Lines too, but Austin is the leader in Notion, and we all understood that from the outset. In Lines, I'm the leader, but we have a whole, I don't want to say a different dynamic, but we just have a different process where everybody is contributing.
It's like Animal Farm. All the animals are equal, but some are more equal.
Yeah.
So let me guess, because you're in both of these bands with your brother, Bowman, he's really the leader. He's just playing you all.
Yes.
You figured it out.
Yes.
Go me.
He's a sneaky snake. No, but and another thing that Lines does differently is, we all can sit in a room together, which was what we were doing the other day. And Notion doesn't really have that luxury. Although I think we are going to try to get together a couple days before another potential show, unconfirmed yet. But
can you tell me any details? It's not local to Pittsburgh, or is it Nashville?
Actually.
It is.
It's at Mr. Roboto. Let me refresh my memory. And it's so far we're still figuring out if we're available.
Okay.
So we were approached to open for. Hold on.
Well, I'm just saying, anybody who listens to my show or is friends with me, they know when I shill a band, I shill it, and I am shilling A Notion of Silence. I love you guys. So, okay, I'm actually just going to make an edit here after the fact. This is what happens when you don't edit your podcast in a timely manner. I recorded this episode about a month ago, and originally during this interview, we were talking about what the show might be, but since I recorded it, it's actually been announced. So if you're in the Pittsburgh area and you aren't doing anything on August 29th, which is a Thursday night, you better get your ass to Mr. Roboto Project in Garfield, and A Notion of Silence will be playing with Massive Scar Era, Dematis, and Ronan. Let me tell you, it's gonna be a good show. See you there.
We're like, okay, obviously with the band being split between locations, it's always a logistical, weights and measures game of what makes things work. But we're in the writing process for the new album.
Okay.
So we're trying to figure out, okay, if we can swing this, let's see if we can swing it for a couple extra days and make some writing sessions out of it.
Yeah, take a little vacation and get a Notion session going.
Yeah, and I gotta say, Pittsburgh is definitely in my top 5 cities in the country.
Really? Well, I'm flattered.
So much good food and drink, and there's so much good Austin. and then I don't know. I'm a sucker for the way that like a skyline looks, and there's something about when we drive in, we always come out of the tunnel, and it's like the city just explodes into view right there.
City.
It's really cool.
That's so funny. That's a view that I take for granted, but then like friends of mine from out of town, I'll drive them in for the airport or something. They're like, "What? Oh, we're in the city." I'm like, "Yeah, yes, you are. You just drove through a mountain and suddenly you're in Pittsburgh."
I get the same feel. I get the same feeling. This Austin's gonna laugh, and fellow gamers may feel this feeling too. But the first time in Mass Effect 1, when you fly into the Citadel, and you're like,
oh yeah, you fly past the capital ship, the Asari, the Ascension or whatever, and then boom, Citadel.
Yeah, that's the vibe. That's the feeling I get when I drive into Pittsburgh. It's like, all right, we're here, yay!
So Pittsburgh is Mass Effect. Great.
Confirmed. The steel building is the Citadel.
I know. I got excited when I was playing Fallout 3, and they had that DLC you could have called Into the Pit that was all in Pittsburgh, and it was like, well, in a nuclear, wasteland, the only way you can barter is with steel ingots.
Yep. That's a creepy DLC, man.
It is. I know. It was super weird. I haven't played that game in a long time, but Oh, that's so flattering that Pittsburgh is now Mass Effect to you.
But so to loop back to the writing process, so for the first Notion record, the influences I laid out were very much my Notion influences. And a lot of them were bands I only discovered later in life, so they wouldn't be my like personal growing up influences. But I was kind of in a lull musically in like 2015 maybe, and maybe 16, I don't know. Anyway, in that thereabouts, and I was listening to a lot of Dead Letter Circus.
Great band.
Yeah, and I was listening to a song. Well, so there was a couple things about listening to them that kind of was the inception of me working on this music, which was one was there's a song off like their first EP. It might be World of Lines or something. No, that's a Coheed song. It's Lines something.
I don't know.
But it's, just was a very cool vibe. And I'm like, let me just try and write something like that. And that ended up being the first draft of The Watcher, which was a very, very different song when it was its first draft. It was pretty much the only things that I kept from that first iteration are the clean lead guitar line. I've kind of adopted as The Watcher's motif. And the bridge, the kind of creepy section with the moving bass line and everything. But that kind of, even though it didn't stick around in that form, it kind of planted the seed of, okay, this sounds kind of cool. So I'm like, let's write some more stuff like this. And then the other thing I took from Dead Letter Circus is actually from I think it was a review I read on one of their albums, where the reviewer commented that the production had a style that emphasized everything but the rhythm guitar. And so I'm like, okay, I'm a rhythm guitarist. Let's run with that as a philosophy.
Okay.
So,
I'm surprised to hear you say you're a rhythm guitarist, though, because to me, like, I think of your solos and all of the Notion stuff. Like, they're so melodic, and they get stuck in my head all the time.
Well, thank you. Although, the Dynamo solo on record's actually not me. That's my buddy Rocky.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
And then, of course, Jesse's got his shredding solo on the first Stone. But I've always definitely viewed myself as more rhythm guitarist. I just never really put in the time to chops. Jesse's chops run circles around me.
And it's funny because I feel the exact same way. I'm
Such mutual love.
But so, and then also just as a writer, I am always thinking, okay, let's write a riff and then build a song around it. So being like, okay, and I relaxed these rules as I went, but I started with okay, let's not use power chords. Let's, not chug. And I also, when I was writing, I was using a Pod Farm rhythm patch or a Pod Farm guitar patch that was based off of a Fender 15-watt 50s combo with a tube screamer cranked in front of it, which is getting way into the guitar nerd weeds. But basically, it's not a metal sound.
Yeah.
It's if you play it, and I was playing on a Telecaster with single coils, but if you play it hard, it's an aggressive sound, and it's very, it's got balls, but you had to play it differently. And of course, when I ended up doing the actual recorded parts, I used, my Mesa Boogie amp, I used the Laney amp. But anyway, so after I'd set those rules for myself, so, no power chords, use a non-traditional metal sound, use a non-traditional metal guitar, and emphasize everything but the rhythm guitar. Like, all right, so I had my first draft. I know what works, kind of what works, what doesn't work. Let's write another one. The next one I wrote was Dynamo, and that one pretty much was, like, instrumentally, it was, like, maybe 3 days, and most of it was in, like, a day. And it, like, there's parts in the final version that are the original demos, like some extra guitar parts, some synths and stuff. So creativity is interesting like that. Like a lot of times, if you set restrictions for yourself, you can really come out with some stuff that'll surprise you. So once that one came together, I kind of was like, all right, I've got the roadmap here. At the time, it wasn't a band; it was just me writing for myself. And I'm like, this is cool. And I've got some cool, like, prog drums on here. I should get Bo to actually play drums on this.
And that's how it actually started.
And then I think the guys were up on a Lines tour and stayed at my place, as they often do, because I give them food and booze. And I was like, yo, you guys should check out the stuff I'm working on. And Ben wasn't in the band at the time, but the other guys we're like, yeah, we would totally be down to, be session musicians on this. And, Jess was like, yeah, I'd love to sing on this. And Bo was like, hell yeah. And so it actually started out as a musician for hire kind of situation. Where
or a Lines in the Sky cover band with Austin Klinger.
Sort of, yeah. So I literally hired them on as my session musicians. And, part of that was, I've got my non-music job and I can indulge this as its side thing. So I want to support my musician friends by hiring them professionally. And
be like Austin.
So over the course of recording the stuff and everything coming together, it just kind of dawned on everyone that's like, this could be more real.
Yeah. So, there was definitely a moment that Bo and I had when we sat down and listened to the record on my monitors here, where we were like, oh shit, this is actually something really special. And and yeah, from then on, it became a much more serious endeavor for both of us.
Well, being that, okay, so you all play in your own little progressive projects here, and like it's cool that you've turned into this little happy Belmont family kind of. And if any listeners out there are still sticking with me on episode 22, I believe it was episode 9. Yeah, I think it was 9 that I interviewed Joey Frivola, who's also the guitarist of Jesse's other band, Edge of Reality. So there is the Belmont connection here. But being that you guys both love progressive music and you play in different groups, like, is there something that you're hoping to get out of each of these projects? Or is it just kind of a chance to collaborate with people that are sort of bringing these unique little flares to the table?
For my part, I kind of go in with no expectations, so that every good thing, and I'm trying to change that now because it's starting to be a little bit of it's not as forceful driving forward, but from my perspective, it's always been, let's follow this thread where it goes. And so every good development that's happened has been such a pleasant surprise. So, the songs turning out as good, to toot my own horn, as they did was like, oh, wow, I didn't know I could do something like this. And
yeah.
Everyone's performance being as great as it was like, wow, they really pulled through. And Chris's mix being amazing was like, yo, that was the best. And then, any show we've had that's gone, even remotely well, it's been like, yo, I'm so lucky and fortunate to have had my, little bedroom idea turn into something that other people are enjoying and is actually legitimate. The last show we did with Felix and Sarah, I got the message for that. I was just driving across the country with my sister, helping her move back from college. I'm in the middle of Iowa, and I get hey, would you like to play this show? I open it up. It's like, oh, holy shit.
Yes.
This is for my band? What? Now, with that said, now that, we've got a record under our belts, it's been out about a year now, a little more than a year, and we've got, some show chops and people are taking some interest, I'm kind of like, okay, now I need to, paradigm shift in my head a bit here from, this is the thing I do and I'm so glad people enjoy it too. Okay, let's see if we can get something sustainable out of this.
Right. And I mean, with Lines in the Sky and Edge of Reality both being touring bands, and you guys have your own opportunities, I'm sort of, at least from a fan perspective, I'm like, okay, I'm really hoping Notion can somehow like pull through and make the logistics thing work, or Austin will just have to move to Nashville.
Hey, I'm trying to get him back all the time, but Nashville is expensive.
No, he's my neighbor, damn it.
So I could probably get the Metro to hire me.
I think for me on that, I definitely agree with Austin's with what Austin said as far as like how Notion operates. I do think Notion has these, as he's described earlier, that has these interesting kind of boundaries, and you can be more creative in boundaries. Mm-hmm. I'm of the opinion that when you have boundaries, you're more creative, and this is what's leading me to do this other side project that's kind of like the industrial electronic thing that I'm secretly
you have more
working.
stuff for me to tell people about.
Yeah, we're it's still in the very early stages, but
it's a new set of boundaries for me to work in, and it's a lot of fun to come up with sounds within those boundaries. Same thing with Notion. I was talking to Austin earlier. I have a new idea that I think will work well with Notion. It'll push the boundaries a little bit, but it's not a line song. It's a Notion song, and it'll be cool to experiment with it. And it may fucking not go anywhere, but it's something that I came up with specifically for Notion. And I find that across all music, just to reiterate, I do feel like having those boundaries encourages more creativity, and that's what I like about Lines and Notion. And Edge is a little bit different. There were no boundaries, and there's another level of creativity that we found in that space as well, and that's why the record is so fucking crazy.
It's so wacky. It's just absolutely bizarre in like the greatest way, and I wanted to personally compliment you on like how the hell do you make your voice do all those things, because there's like operatic stuff, there's just the goofy like lower spoken word, there's just your voice goes everywhere.
And I think that there are some of the most difficult vocal things I have ever done are on that record for sure. And some of that is just the crazy shit that Joey writes, finding something that'll work with that. There's one song on there called Bed of Lies that has several different perspectives and characters.
Right.
And, trying to capture what those characters are going through it was a lot of fun, especially the first third of that song. It's like this egomaniacal
Oh, okay, yeah. I'm recalling the song now. I was driving to the gym the other morning when I heard that for the first time, and I almost crashed my car, I think, because it was just like, what, okay, like.
My friend, tomorrow is the first big test, and
it's just like something to behold. It's just so crazy.
Oh yeah, all you have to play from that song is the first little riff. That's it.
Yeah.
But it's
go ahead.
It's kind of interesting. One of the things that kind of makes Notion, Edge, and Lines so distinct from each other, despite the fact that we share a singer for our published work, is that for all of them, there's very, while Jesse does some of the writing, if not maybe the majority of the writing of the vocal lines for Edge, he's not the only one writing the vocal melodies and vocal parts. And in Notion, pretty much all of the vocal parts I wrote. And I'm not much of a singer myself, but I've worked with Jesse for a while. I know what he can do. But so there's very different melodic impulses and different ways of structuring a phrase between the different groups.
That's an excellent point, because Edge of Reality is like you're almost like multisyllabic in places, and there's just strange groupings of notes. Like it is definitely a thing that you have to be a talented vocalist to be able to pull off. Not saying that Notion is any less difficult, but like I can at least sing along to Notion stuff in my car.
Well, I appreciate that, and I will say with Edge at this point, I know comfortably what a fourth and a tritone feel like to sing, and an interval that couple intervals that a lot of people have trouble figuring out what that feels like in your throat.
Well, when before the Edge record came out, Jesse was sending me some of the final tracks because I get to hear them.
Perks.
And so I heard Puzzle Man.
Oh, Puzzle Man!
It's got that first verse vocal line, and I'm like, Jesse, you didn't write this, did you? It's a really cool vocal line, but it's just that staccato.
So one of the ways that Joey and I would kind of work is Joey just comes up with these batshit insane ideas, and he I was like, what are you feeling for the vocal line of this? And he was like, I don't know, something like what the guitar is doing, and he literally played that on the piano, and I was like, that's not a vocal melody. Get the hell out of here. And then I like figured it out and I was like, all right, let's cut it.
You're going to do it and you're going to like it, Jesse.
Yeah. There's some moments on Gone like that too. I sang on his solo record, Gone. It's another cool prog concept album. There's one moment on that song. I don't remember what the song is actually. Whatever. Some song somewhere on this record, there was a big vocal stack, and he wanted a high G sharp or something like that. And I was like, I can't sing that. There's no way I can do that. And then I sang it in falsetto, and I was like, all right, let's get a couple more.
Good friends, I guess, push each other's boundaries. But that's like one of the coolest things I think nobody knows in the progressive music world right now, like how much weird overlap there is with, you know, Jesse's vocals and like all these little weird side projects that everybody kind of networks between. It's just awesome. Like, I wish every talented musician I love just had 8 bands so I could just soak them all up. I can only fit so many bands in my head, and I'm amazed I keep adding more.
Well, I'm working on some comedic melodeath, so that'll come your way.
Oh, okay. Well, before I ask you about that, Austin, I will actually probably leave a link to this when I publish this episode, but Austin did this fantastic entry into this like Monty Python metal cover thing. You'll have to tell me more, but it's hilarious, and it involves like a lot of beer cans and just homemade weaponry, and you're clearly a very talented songwriter.
Thanks. So, that was last year's Glenn Fricker, a YouTuber who focuses on metal production, audio engineering, with a very sarcastic bent and very much in favor of reinforcing methodologies that showcase real talent as opposed to, you know, program drums and auto-tune and all that. He's kind of got a crusade against those, which I'm not going to come down for or against either way at the risk of incriminating myself. But anyway, he occasionally will run contests, and the one last year was called Sucks 2018. I don't really know how the acronym worked, because the words in the contest didn't line up with Sucks, but the idea was to take comedy songs that weren't originally meant for metal and do them in a metal vein. So, some people did like Business Time by Flight of the Conchords, or so I did the Knights of the Round Table from Monty Python and the Holy Grail. And the reason originally I was going to do a Ninja Sex Party song, and I decided against that for 2 reasons. One, because it would be hard to do a video for, and 2, because I would have to sing it, and Danny Sexbang has an amazing voice. So I'm like, all right, if I don't really want to have to force myself to sing decently to make a good entry, what are my options? I'm like, okay, I could do death metal, but that's kind of, if the whole point's the lyrics, I do have a fairly intelligible scream, but that's still working against you. Or I could get a group. Okay, what group singing songs are there? Knights of the Round Table. So I just got all my friends together. I had this whole video scripted out, and I'm like, okay, costumes. I can't afford actual costumes. Red Fang had a video once where they... Yeah,
I think I've seen it, yeah.
Yeah, Prehistoric Dog. It's a great song, but the video is the band is in a car full of beer cans, and there's a bunch of kids LARPing, live action role playing.
Yes, okay, I have seen that one.
And they make fun of the kids, so they go home, they drink a bunch of beer, they make armor out of it. Theirs looks better than mine, but whatever. And they go and they beat the kids up until the kids go and get out their actual real weapons and kill the band. So using that as inspiration, I bought a shit ton of crappy beer, made my roommate drink it all, and make armor. And so we made that video, brought everyone down, taught them how to sing the parts, which actually that same group I also made a choir out of for some parts on Dynamo. There's some.
Oh.
So.
And is that not also like at least half of those people are your regular trivia team?
Oh yeah.
Which I love.
Yeah,
I got to come out for that one time, and I'm like, wait, you're the people from that Monty Python video.
Yeah. So in Graviton, they double up the vocoder Speak to the Void and the Void Shouts Back part. They double up some of Jesse's layering in The First Stone. It was just a big old choir, and to do that, most of them aren't trained musicians at all, so just kind of like one line at a time. It's like, okay, this is the part, sing it out to them, we sing that part, and then layer up the next part. which I think is actually similar to how Queen would do their multi-tracked harmonies, is they would have everyone do every part.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I had them do that, and I sent them on the merry way, did the video, did it up, and I actually ended up, I don't know if it's first prize because Glenn still hasn't put out the results video, but I won either first or second prize, which was a high spec audio computer that I've been using.
Ooh,
Yeah.
fancy.
So yeah, I did that, and I'm always trying to think of new goofy videos to do.
Well, yeah, you kind of post like whenever you bought that Ibanez, you posted that little like "Does it gent" type of video.
that's my
Austin's
Kiesel,
the
yeah.
resident. Oh yeah, you're right. It's Austin's resident meme lord.
Oh yes.
Yeah. And then, I did that fake Plenty of Fish profile dramatic
Yes.
reading.
Yes.
But so my newest thing is
Oh yeah, comedic melodeath.
yes. So for anyone who's familiar with the band Necrogoblicon, that's kind of the vein I'm going for. And part of it is that I'm trying to make stuff that I'm starting to learn drums, and I'm trying to force myself to record myself more often. So I'm like, okay, I'm not good enough to play my own Notion stuff I'm writing by design, because it's going to Bowman, who's insane. So it's like, okay, what avenue of my, inspirations can I chase that won't tread on that toes? And it's like, okay, let's do some melodic death metal. And so I wrote one the last week, and I'm like, all right, now what do I want the song to be about? And a phrase that came into my mind was the phrase moon hooch. And so I'm like, all right. So I've got this whole lyrical saga about a guy who goes to party on the moon, but loses his liquor on the way and has to distill his own booze out of moon rocks.
That's fucking amazing.
So I actually just sent Jesse the instrumental for that before I came over.
Nice.
It's quite fantastic.
Oh man, if you need like some random vocals layered in the back, I would be honored to be on an album about that entire content. That would be so much fun.
I've also got in the back of my head a similar thing, only all the songs would be, so the band name is called Eurypterid, which is a prehistoric giant sea scorpion.
That's a mouthful.
Yeah, right? Things you learn with a marine biologist for a dad.
Okay.
But, so like 6 foot long sea scorpion, that's kind of terrifying. Pretty metal.
That's pretty metal, yeah.
So I just started coming up with song titles that are all puns about like geologic eras. So like...
So you're ripping off the ocean, basically, is what I'm hearing.
So like Devilonian instead of Devonian. Yeah, I haven't told Jesse yet. Or let's see, what else was there? Nuclear Cambrian explosion.
So it's taking... Oh, man, that's great. You have such a brain for that, just like the weird punny stuff. I love it. Seriously, if you need any contribution to that, I would be happy to humbly offer my mediocre services. But
Well, I'm planning on doing some vocals this weekend, so I might hit you up.
okay, sweet. That's perfect. Yeah, see, I find it interesting that you guys both kind of like... You already have all the ideas like up there floating around, it seems like, as opposed to I'm called to this riff. It's just kind of like, no, I sort of know what I want it to sound like.
That's actually something about myself I discovered through writing the Dynamo album, was that, waiting for lightning to strike or for inspiration to hit you is great and all, but you can definitely hustle that along if you've got somewhere you're looking to channel that. So once I had the song Dynamo and I started to have some other ideas, I want to do this for real. I'm not great at writing, lyrics without something guiding it. So let's make it a concept album. And, I got the very roughest outline of the concept from there, which changed a lot over the course of it. But from there, I'm like, all right, so if I'm doing this story arc, what are the main story beats I need to hit? I wanted to structure them in such a way that they would have an ebb and flow to the dynamics of a record. So, upbeat song, lower, heavier, there's kind of like a 3-act structure to it. And so what I actually ended up doing was I would commute into work and I would have a text doc open and I'd come up with, okay, what's the idea I want to hit here? Okay, what's a title that evokes that story beat? and that's how I came up with most of the song titles, which existed before the songs did.
Oh, interesting. Oh, good. That's how I'm writing my music that I'm never going to release. I have all the song titles and a couple lyrics, but no music.
And as an aside, that's how I've written for a long time as well. For lines, it's like thalassophobia. I had that word stuck in my head for some reason, and then I just ended up writing the song around it. So it's a good way to kind of really focus your writing.
Yeah.
Well, it's a restriction in its own right.
Yep.
Kind of.
Which goes back to what we were talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's not to say that what you come up with as your first idea has to be the destiny of it, because what became Crack the Shell was originally what I came up with for the title Shadow on the Dark.
Oh. Yeah. Okay.
And it wasn't until I was about halfway through writing that I'm like, this isn't really fitting what I wanted that one to be, but it's kind of edging towards this other one, so...
There is a very distinct album feel to Dynamo. It does have all the little nitty-gritty, like, Shadow on the Dark is kind of like the soft, poppy bit that doesn't... It's not that it doesn't fit, but it's just distinctly different than everything else, and then you get the really heavy parts in Contact and, like, bluesy there's just so much stuff going on in that album. That's why I love it so much. It's just very listenable. Like it's hard for me to start that album and not finish that album because I'm like, but I want to know what happens at the end, even though I know what happens at the end. It's kind of like reading a book you really like. It seems like my commute gets me to about 4.5, 5 tracks in. So then by the time I'm pulling into my office, it gets to Graviton Signal, and I'm like, but I want to sing that one in my car. It's my favorite. I get really sad. So between the both of you guys, what advice would you give to people who are trying to essentially do what you're doing? Either be in a band or just be in a bedroom project or kind of a mashup of the both?
I would first give the advice that I'm trying to follow for myself, which is that just fucking start on something. Because I personally always fall in the trap of, okay, I've got an idea, but it's not quite solid in my head yet, so maybe I'll let it sit. Maybe I'll play some video games and relax for a bit. I've had a hard week. I don't want to jump right into something. It's like, no, dude, you just get over that energy of an activation. Get off your ass and start it. You'll bitch and whine when you're starting up, but once you're actually working on it, it doesn't feel like work. And it doesn't matter if you don't get something usable out of it the first time. You get in that habit of putting rubber to road, and you'll eventually come out with some stuff that's, what you're looking for.
Jesse?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. I'm running into issues right now with that. I'm kind of trying to develop my music synthesis skills right now with this other project, and you'll be working on a sound for an hour, and you'll be like, God, this sounds dumb, and then you'll keep fucking with it, and then you'll find the one plugin that makes it sound awesome, and then you get new inspiration from that. So I see a lot of, I guess that's probably my addition to that is like, and I see a lot of people bitch about this on Reddit where they're like, I just have no inspiration. And it's like, dude, like every once in a while I'll be on fire inspired, and something will just be like eating away in my head, like, oh, that would be so dope. But you can find pockets of inspiration if you keep pushing at something. And when something is truly dead, when an idea is truly at the end of its road, you'll know. But I mean, don't try to get to the end of that, and then figure out, hey, maybe I should dial this idea back, or maybe this should get recycled later, which is what happens with a lot of songs in general. So yeah, just keep hacking at it, And as far as do your own thing or be in a band, I mean, definitely try both. Being in a band has its own issues, and I mean, Austin can vouch for some of the tumultuous times that I've had in all of my projects.
Oh yeah.
But you eventually either come through or you realize, hey, maybe this isn't the best kind of situation for me, you know. And that's a big thing for a lot of people to realize, you know, that maybe the band thing is not for them. In fact, as an aside with this, or an example of this, so Line's original bass player, Zach Wakefield, played with us for a long time, and then he just kind of realized, I think that I need to be, you know, I need to shift my priorities and do my own music, and then also he's working a lot now, but so the other day he moved to a new town, started a new job, and he's writing a new body of music right now. So him leaving Lines was the first best step for him to get him to the place that he is now. Granted, this has been some time. This has been maybe like 6 years or something like that. But
oh wow!
But that set him on a trajectory. To where he is now, which is the best. I mean, when I spoke to him the other day on the phone, he's one of my best friends. But when I spoke to him, he just sounded like super excited about life and super excited about his music. He's got this really cool kind of doom metal thing that he's working on. So,
what band is he in?
He doesn't have a name for it yet, but I'll link it to you whenever he gets it.
Yeah, I'd be curious.
Yeah. He's a great dude. You would really like Zach. But
love me some doom.
Oh, Zach. Z-Tank.
Z-Tank. What a special person, man. Love that guy.
He's a good dude.
Z-Tank. Who are two people that have influenced you both the most?
Oh, man.
Yeah, now I'm getting to the serious questions as I'm winding this down. You know?
As musicians or as people?
Just if you could think of like one or two people that pretty much have inspired you to write your own music. Could be fictional, real, family, friends, other musicians, whoever.
I mean, it's definitely an honest answer for me to loop back to earlier when I said that, you know, the way that Jesse approaches guitar and writing rock, and, you know, I wouldn't be listening to the same music I do if I hadn't run into this dude, let alone...
Jesse just put a big heart up on Skype.
Yeah, but seriously, like, you know, my earlier stuff was very, you know, straightforward metal, and it was, you know, took Jesse, when we were first living together, I didn't realize at the time, but they had just gotten rid of their second guitar player, which Lines was a 2-guitar band at the time, and Jesse's like, hey, what's the hardest thing you know how to play? So I pulled out my guitar and I played Neil Zaza's I'm All Right, which was what I had used to apply to schools that required a music audition for their audio program, which is a cool song, but it's, you know, it's a Steve Vai kind of thing.
Like neoclassical kind of? Okay.
And not all that choppy, very much, you know, very melodic. And Jesse's like, could you play this? And I forget what it was. I don't think Dig Deeper was written at the time. It might have been the earliest iteration of like Threads or Needles and Stitches or something, some other early line song.
It was a long time ago.
No, it was double plus good. It was double plus good.
Oh, wow, okay.
Because I remember trying to figure out with that opening part, I'm like, okay, should I finger pick this? Should I hybrid pick this? And, you know, at the time Jesse was a piano major, so, you know, that approach to guitar was so different than what I was used to. And so, you know, I think I took some of the music home on like a Christmas break or something and sat down and tried my best, you know, to learn it. And I think for most of the songs I eventually got them, but it was such like okay, break yourself down, you know, break all the habits you have and preconceptions and relearn this instrument. I ended up playing live with them for a little under a year. But, you know, just learning that way of looking at the instrument definitely was a huge, huge influence. And I guess the other big person I'd have to give a toss-up between two of my music teachers in school. My middle school band director...
they have to fight to the death now.
Yeah. Oh, that would be interesting. You know, Miss Kishbaugh, who, you know, I was learning trombone, and but her husband was a big metalhead, and nice. When we were coming up, you know, learning these band songs, but also like, Miss Kishbaugh, check out this cool song I learned in, or I just discovered in bringing a Metallica song and like being able to relate, okay, that's a legitimate, and B, tie that to, the development of a young musician and be like, okay, this is, what's going on. This is what's cool.
It's validating your style that you're finding interesting, I guess.
Yep. And then my high school choir and other music, like non-band music classes teacher, who taught me theory, music theory, music history, choir, and was very much a someone who taught me, how like to look at music on a deeper level than just, reading the notes off the page. And also, I've said through this interview that I'm not much of a singer, but I actually did advance to the county choir and the district choir, so, those skills don't really translate too well from, classical bass to, at least when I've tried to do it for rock stuff. But, that kind of level of ambition of, you might not think you have it in you for this, but try it anyway, go for it.
Right.
And that, don't be afraid to fail kind of mentality. So I've rambled long enough on this question. I think those are my answers.
No, that's a great answer. That's all hitting the nail on the head for me too. I used to be so afraid of failure, and now I'm just doing it. So, Jesse, what are your one or two?
All right. So this is a difficult question because it's changed a lot over the years. I do have to give a lot of credit to Claudio Sanchez from Coheed, just because, seeing him, so several things with him, the harmonies and the way that he writes his melodies, always just really hit home with me. And then the big thing from him was his ability to play that guitar the way that he does and sing the way that he does. So I was like, man,
That's true, yeah, because you do both.
yeah, I was like, I want to learn how to do that. And he still blows me away. Like, he just recently did a cover of Englishman in New York, the Sting song. And I was just watching him play and sing that, and I was like, I don't know how he did that. And I've been learning his stuff for years. And watching him, it's like, he always does something that just floors me. He's progressed as a musician so well over the course of his career, and that's inspiring to me. Let's see. Claudio. Let me give you a recent one. There's an artist from, I'm not sure if he's from Toronto or one of the other big Canadian cities. That shows how much of an idiot I am and how much of a fan I am of this guy. But there's an electronic artist named Coma Duster, and I highly recommend him to any progressive musician listening. He does really interesting industrial rock, and but that's not even the right way to describe it. It's like rock sounding EDM with crazy sound design and
prog as hell on like the time signatures and rhythms and all that kind of fun.
Yeah, he just released a song called Monolith that has like a 7-lit division grid, and it just blew me away. But every release of his it's the same kind of thing with Claudio. It just everyone blows me away on another level, and I'm like, God, like, this guy can't do anything wrong. And he's not a huge artist. Like, I don't think he has. I think he has 80,000 monthly listeners on Spotify. And
he did some of the stuff for Mass Effect 2, right?
Yes,
that's cool.
I'm also convinced that he's the guy that created the Reaper noises. Like, I've been listening to him, and I'm like, I think that his name's Rail.
That's
Cardinal.
a level of aptitude for sound nuance that I just don't have. You're like, yeah, I think this guy I listened to might have made the Reaper sounds.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because he did a song for like one of the clubs in Mass Effect 2 or something, and I was like, man, that was a cool track. And so I just kind of like looked it up on YouTube one day, and I was like, "Cool, Coma Duster. Who the fuck is this?" And then I was like, "Oh my god!" What? So recently, a lot of his stuff has been just incredibly inspirational and really just a really fulfilling listen, and has inspired me to want to do something in that genre with my solo stuff as well. But it also, in trying to create sounds similar to like what he does, it opens up doors for things in Notion and lines that, and especially for Notion, that I really want to bring to the table in this writing phase. So yeah, those are probably the. Claudio's a classic, and Coma Duster is a more recent one.
I will definitely check out Coma Duster.
Yeah.
This is such an exciting time to interview you guys, because all of your bands are like working on new stuff, which is just great. I do have to ask the question that Austin mentioned before I probably ask my signature question, but is or is not your brother Bowman, Jesse, actually two kids in a trench coat?
We can neither confirm nor deny.
That is where I'm going to leave that answer. Can neither confirm nor deny.
All I'll say is, have you ever seen an adult with that level of energy?
No. No.
Yeah.
Now that I think about it, he just must wear an invisible trench coat.
True.
This is true.
Oh, Bowman. Yeah. He's such a great drummer. He really is.
He is, we've kind of not spoken much of him, but he is.
Sorry, Bowman.
He is.
Sorry.
He is truly one of the most incredible drummers that I've had the fortune of playing with.
Yeah. I first met him when he was like 16, and he was already technically the best drummer I'd ever worked with, and I was at a music school. Now there were other drummers that had better pocket and feel. Those are all things that Bo, grew into, as any young musician will.
Right.
But just on a sheer level of, look what I can do. All right.
Fun fact.
It's just like, what the
Bowman
fuck?
was denied the first time that he applied to the School of Music.
Well, fuck him.
Yeah, fuck him, literally. And we weren't able to find out exactly what the issue was, but when he applied again, they just kind of let him in. They're like, yeah, you're in.
Huh.
No worries. And so we have a feeling it was a political thing. Belmont administration political decision. So I don't know. We don't really know exactly, but Belmont was not very kind to Bowman.
Well, that's shitty, because he's a great drummer, and I, the other day, was like, I'm going to try to play some Notion stuff, and that lasted about 3 minutes.
I can relate. I use Graviton as like a rhythmic exercise for myself when I'm practicing drums, but I'm not even trying to play what he's playing, which feels shitty because I wrote those things for
you reap what you sow.
For real. I should take that back. Some of the most interesting drumming in that song is actually Bowman wrote. He was like, hey, I see what you're doing here. I want to do something totally different.
Yes.
So like when in the second riff and second verse where he goes to the offbeat.
Oh, the little offbeat ride. Yeah, it's so cool.
Him.
I don't know what the hell he's doing there, but it's so cool. It's just has that shuffle feel that's like really bizarre, but it works.
Yeah.
It just works. It changes the whole feel.
There are moments all over the Notion record where Bo just put his flair on a section, and it really adds something special.
It's prog, man.
Prog.
It's prog.
Well, and definitely, Jesse was saying earlier that, I'm the leader of this group, but there's definitely, a level to which, while I'm writing most of the parts, although we're trying to shift it to be a little more democratic for record 2, but, I'll write the parts, but if I give it to someone and they say, hey, I see what you're going for, but I might have a better idea, generally speaking, they'll be right. So there's a lot of spots that Bo changed things up. There's several parts where Jesse changed up either to be more musical or because I've written something stupid.
Humanity
yeah, exactly.
was one of those.
Yeah, the chorus I had originally written for Humanity was not really feasible, but Jesse was able to nip and tuck it into the much better melody it has now, which is great. And spots where in The Watcher at the end, the Breathe Spark of Life, where it starts to turn.
Oh, it starts to speed up, and then it gets
the cacophony of voices there. Jesse was like, "Hold on, I've got an idea," and just starts layering these harmonies that make they're certainly not diatonic. They make no traditional kind of sense, but you stack them all together and it kind of sounds like a train horn. And and then let's see, Ben definitely had moments like that, like the little funky bass groove in Contact, under the soft C, the strings voices. That was a Ben. Let's see,
that was a Ben.
The little the way the bass part changes in the second half of the choruses for the first stone, from where it's just holding down the root to a little bit more of a walk, or it's got the that was all. So that there's definitely a respect for the people who are the masters of their instruments, where I'll hand them the idea and that's like, all right, make it happen, make it your own.
That's the respectable part of being in a band with people that you actually enjoy working with and you look up to their sound and their influence, I guess. Well, I suppose that's probably a good place to ask my signature question then. And this is going to really piss you off if you don't know it's coming, but I always ask everybody what their 3 albums that they couldn't live without would be. Oh. I can't remember actually though, Jesse. Didn't I mention that to you when we were standing outside? I feel like I spoiler alerted you on that when we were standing outside.
I'm caught off
venue.
guard, so I'm not sure. And I've listened to several of your podcasts. So
I was gonna say you did, but yeah, you didn't scream at me.
I should be ready. Austin, you go first.
Oh. Oh boy. Okay.
I'm ready. You go first.
All right. Let me look at my.
I'm pulling up Spotify right now.
Well.
Oh, hey, you know what? Last night on the podcast that I got interviewed on, they asked me, because they've listened to my podcast, and said, fine, I'm going to turn the question around on you. And I still, going to sleep last night, I couldn't believe I couldn't remember the name of my favorite Imogen Heap album. And I stumbled over it for like 3 minutes.
Here, how about this? How about we go one at a time on this?
Perfect.
Because I know one of mine.
All right, hit me.
So, definitely that one Coheed record, the Good Apollo, I'm a Burning Star, the first one, is absolutely critical to be in my top 3.
It's a must-have. Austin looks ready.
Well, I was just going to say that was going to be in my top 3 as well. I was kind of between that and Keeping Secrets, but I think it edges it out a little. Although, I'm gonna say Keeping Secrets just to have variety.
Okay.
All right, so I'm gonna lean on nostalgia a little here. We Are Not Alone by Breaking Benjamin.
Oh, great album. Such a great album.
That's definitely
that was a really
a
formative one
as well. All right. Well, my Spotify is not being much help here.
You got it up in your brain. I have faith.
Let's see here. Sting's 10 Sumner's Tales is definitely up there. Probably in the top 3. It usually gets listened to about 30 times whenever Lines goes out on the road. Just through and through, it's a fantastic record. I love it.
The only Sting stuff I know besides The Police is what my dad used to always listen to, because he listened to a ton of jazz, and it was that Desert Rose song.
That's a good one.
And there's just the vocal in the background going, like in the background, and I'm like, that's all I remember.
Like. That's a good one. That's a good record, too. But 10 Sumner's Tales is fantastic. I highly recommend that record.
Okay. Sting and Claudio.
I think my last one is going to be Ascendancy by Trivium. That album still gets me super
I forgot
hyped.
you're a big Trivium fan, yeah.
Yeah.
So now I got to find my last one here.
Make it count.
Austin, do you know me better than me? Can you help me out?
Well,
Blue Sky Noise?
No.
See, I was going to say, what's your favorite Circa album?
Okay, well maybe we'll finish with this one.
On Letting Go.
That's in my top 3.
Yeah.
Period.
On Letting Go is definitely my favorite Circa record. I think because I heard that one first, and then I heard Jaturna,
Right.
and I was like, oh shit. But
Yeah, so did I. I did it backwards.
yeah, but I think On Letting Go, yeah, it was, as far as like, if we had to put it in a museum, that would be the one.
I can sing that front to back like with my eyes closed. Like I've listened to it hundreds, if not thousands, of times.
Yeah,
and
same.
It does deserve a top 3
Yeah,
placement, I think.
I really need to give their entire discography a more thorough listen, because I usually I usually hit either Violent Waves or Blue Sky Noise and kind of like, yeah, this is my happy place.
both of which are
Yeah, Dissensus
fantastic
is good
records.
too. Honestly, The Amulet was my album of the year in 2017. I thought the
Really?
album was fantastic.
Really?
I liked The Amulet, but I kept feeling like I was waiting for it to explode.
Yeah,
That's
felt like-
true.
agree
It's
with
kind of
that.
soft and
Which I get, different point in your life. So, but just I felt like there was this tension throughout. I'm just like, just let it happen.
I get this vibe that Anthony Green's influence and passion may or may not be in a different place now, because I mean he's had 3 kids,
right.
and they lost several kids before they had that first one. So
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah, very, very traumatic time. I mean, he's definitely been through some shit, but
Yeah.
But I just, The Amulet, I didn't feel that passion that was there on the first 4 records. And I only listened through it like twice, and it just kind of made me sad.
It is a very sad album, but when you tell me that, I didn't know that about he and his wife losing children, which is awful, but the guy has such an emotive voice, and it's like, it doesn't matter if it's sad or happy. I mean, he can just sing it like it just gives you goosebumps.
Okay, here's a question for you,
Okay.
and Austin as well. What's your
Great.
favorite Circa Survive song?
Ooh.
Because I know what mine is.
Oh my god, mine actually might be Through the Desert Alone. Yeah. I don't know why, but I found that song before I had gone through like splitting with my ex and like other breakups and stuff, but for some reason that song talking about like, it's essentially like, I needed you when you weren't there for me.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna starve in the. I mean, just the visual imagery he paints with the lyrics in that song are so hard, and he has that kind of like desperation in his voice through that whole song. I think Through the Desert Alone. Yeah.
AK, what about you?
I want to give my shout outs to my runners up that I was just debating between, because I feel like they don't get enough love. The Lottery off of Violent Waves.
Oh, yeah.
Is just a banger. It's just such a cool and hard hitting song. On the flip side, Suitcase off of that same record.
I barely know that record.
I think it's underrated, honestly. But I've got a special place in my heart for Suitcase. Like, I first tripped across that when I was having an emotionally hard time, and the lyrics really kind of sat with me. And I've also got, as a musician, a connection there. For one of our friends' audio projects, they needed a song put together, and so I had a group put in an acoustic arrangement of that, and I still
That was
like
my
listening to
audio
that.
project.
Oh, that was yours?
My friend Jesse, who's
I couldn't
also
remember
being
if that was like
interviewed.
you or Emma or someone else. But yeah, no, that like I still like it was his Audio One project, so it was right to tape, and I, being a little farther along in the program than he was because I started it sooner. When he was done, I had the authority to grab that 8-track or 16-track tape and run it over and print it into Pro Tools so I could do my own mix of it. But we had our friend Aaron do drums on it, and he got a really cool fat drum sound by using hot rods, the bundled sticks.
Oh, yeah.
So just like all in the room together. Jesse, did you play piano on that project?
I think I did end up playing piano.
And then our friend Oh God, I'm pulling such a brain fart. What's her name?
Stephanie Middleton sang.
Stephanie Middleton.
She's a badass electronic artist in her own right. I play for her. Her name's Notel.
Yeah, serious shout out to her. Stephanie's got some of the coolest lyrical turns of phrase, just as a songwriter. But so those are my runners up. My actual favorite has to go to Glass Arrows.
I almost said Glass Arrows. Team Blue Sky Noise here in Pittsburgh, apparently.
It's a good one. All right, so my favorite Circa Survive song, and it definitely comes from a place of hurt and emotional instability, but Nesting Dolls.
Oh, yeah. It's been a while
Deconsensus.
since I heard that one.
It's definitely like kind of like a slow burner, but just that line, I don't ever want to feel like this ever again. I had an experience with somebody after that record came out, and I was like, I don't want to ever suffer emotionally like this ever again. And then a friend of mine went through a traumatic breakup, and he was talking about that. He was like, this song is just like spoken to me, in this entire time. So like and he's one of my best friends as well. And so that song just gets me every single time. And that's the most anthemic moment for me in all of Circa Survive's catalog, is that chorus when he sings that line. And it just, it's such a crazy song arrangement wise. It builds and it gets chaotic and it ends with this weird like metallic sound. It's interesting, but yeah, that's gotta be my favorite.
Oh, I gotta revisit that one because I can't even like place it in my head. I skipped over some of the later Circa stuff, and then
as have I, and I think a lot of that record is kind of the descent and not descent, but I think it wasn't fully realized. But that there are some bangers on that album.
Man, I should just have a Circa Survive podcast. I would talk about them like all day long. But, are there any other things you guys want to mention?
New Notion is going to be coming. Not sure if it'll be this year or next year, but
Is it also sci-fi themed?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
And as of right now, the concept is in its alpha stages, but it is looking like a sequel.
Ooh. So it's going to be the person who left Earth.
Well, so not a sequel following the same characters, but a sequel set in the same setting.
Okay. I can live with that. I can be patient and wait for it.
Basically, the teaser I have the idea is, what would people find if they came to Earth after we were gone?
Oh, I love that idea. That's like, I have lots of thoughts running through my head about that. I feel like I've heard songs with a similar theme that I would have to recommend to you, but
yeah, and what Austin has written musically at this point definitely reflects aspects of that storyline very, very well. And there's one song in particular that I think will probably be the first song on the record.
Probably, if it's the one you're thinking.
That is fucking glorious.
I'm really happy with how that one's turning out.
Yeah. So yeah, New Notion will be coming soon. And yeah, just check out all the related projects. Moon Hooch is gonna be great.
Yeah, I'm hoping to have that's probably going to be like a one-off thing. I'm hoping to have something for that out in the world in the next week or so.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah, I don't.
And then Jesse, Lines in the Sky is putting a new album out.
Lines in the Sky is working on new music. We have the single Thalassophobia out. We're gonna do a few more singles throughout the end of the year, and hopefully a new record in 2020. Depends on a couple things, but that's looking like what the timeline is gonna be for that. And then of course the Edge of Reality record is out. We have a few shirts left. Buy that shit.
Woo!
But yeah, check all that out. I'm extremely proud of all of that. I'm extremely proud of this Notion record, and I can't wait to get this next one really rolling here.
I'm hyped. I can only listen to Dynamo so many times. I mean, that's not true, but I do listen to it a lot. So, well, it has been a pleasure having both of you guys remotely and sitting next to me. But thanks for enlightening me on everything Jesse and Austin.
Yeah, thanks for having us. This is
you're welcome.
Super good hang.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Welcome. All right, everybody, go check out A Notion of Silence. They are on Facebook under A Notion of Silence, Spotify under A Notion of Silence. And actually, I forgot to mention, if you go to their YouTube channel, you can do what I did before I saw them at Smiling Moose. You can go watch their lyric videos for, I think, all of the tracks off of Dynamo. So if you want to get a better understanding of the storyline or just learn all the words so you can go sing along to them at Mr. Roboto Project on August 29th at 7 p.m. here in Pittsburgh, you can do that. Go check these guys out. Go check out Jesse's other bands, Lines in the Sky and Edge of Reality. And I will see you next episode. As always, thanks for listening.